Hello and welcome to Leaning In with me, Tanya Mikvitz, and
Jessica Epperson-Lusty.
we are so excited to be here with you and to bring you this seed of a project beginning right now at Samhain, or as many of you know it as Halloween, but it is the midway point between autumn equinox and winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. And in the Celtic tradition, this is seen as the new year because actually we sow our seeds into the dark earth. It's like when everything has come back to the ground, and then the soil gets to nurture that seed, and we move into the darkest of the days. And then from there, we move back into spring and start to grow through the earth and blossom and so forth. So this feels like a really potent time to do what we hope to be here to do, which is really embrace life in all its many ways, embrace ourselves as fully messy, divine, imperfectly perfect humans, right? And that we find a space where we can be brave enough to look at all of it, you know, our messy humanity, our patterns, our stories, and so forth. So we actually align at this time, interestingly, astrologically as well, because we have the goddess of chaos and discord, Eris, nearly conjunct with the North Node. And the North Node is like the karmic pull, right? Where we're moving towards. And when we look at our natal charts, our birth charts, the North Node is often like where we know we need to go, but sometimes we resist it because it's moving us out of our comfort zone, is where our lessons are. And Eris, the story of Eris, which I can tell in a very brief way and probably not very well, but just to get the idea. So, once upon a time, all the gods and the goddesses were invited to this lavish party, and they all loved to go and dress up and show themselves in all their finery. The only goddess who wasn't invited was Eris, because who wants the goddess of chaos and discord at their party? However, she turns up anyway, because that's what she's like. And she brings with her this golden apple with the inscription, to the fairest of them all. And then she finds the table at which all the goddesses are sat. There's Aphrodite, there's Athena, all the rest of them. And they're sitting there and they're very poised and elegant and beautiful. And then she shows the apple and they're all kind of like, oh, well, that's obviously me, thinking to themselves. And then she throws the apple on the table and they all scramble for it because actually inside they're all terribly vain. And then this goes on to actually be what starts the Trojan War. But I won't go into the full story, but just this idea that Eris, the energy of Eris, is causing discord and chaos, but actually it's to reveal what's truly going on underneath. And in a way, that's kind of what we're here to do, but hopefully not with too much discord or chaos, but just being very real. So we'll begin just by presenting ourselves. So Jessica, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about who you are and where you are in your story right now?
I'm honored to, Tanya. Thank you so much. And thank you for orienting us at this moment of our initiation of our Leaning In project. And I come to this project at the age of 47. I am the mother of two daughters who are 18 and 19. One has just gone off to school in her second year, and one is working her way towards college or whatever her next phase is next year. And so that's a real primary role of the context of my life. I live in Washington, D.C., in the land of the Piscataway and the Natochunk Indigenous Americans. And I am a person who is always been in the process of seeking understanding. And actually, I love that you use the story of Eris, because when I think about who I am in the context of being right here, right now, today, I think about myself as a little girl in the context of my family and sort of the world that I was coming to know, and feeling a real sense of chaos, and feeling a real sense that there was so much that was happening on the surface that was in discord with what was actually happening under the surface. And I think that many of the practices and modalities and things, life themes that we'll be discussing and sharing and applying and working with in this space, and those that we have come to work with together and I've come to into relationship with, have been a response to that very early sense of discord and wanting to understand and wanting to bring integration and wanting to bring healing and bring forth the conditions within us and between us, where we can really be in connection with one another, and we can enjoy what we sense is possible in relationship with one another and with the world and with who we are. And I've been on that journey for a long time. I've 20 years as a yogic practitioner and teacher, with different forms of dance and ways of entering in the body, with journey dance, which Tanya and I, and as you'll hear, we have some crossover interests and areas of practice and modalities that we have come into a relationship to learn to facilitate, and some differences that we'll bring into the space. And I currently am coming out of a program of community liberation, eco and indigenous psychologies, and masters of depth psychology, with those specialities that I really went into after several decades of working on healing and transformational modalities. Really, at some point in that, my attention turned not just to myself, but to my lineage, drawing in my mother, my father, my grandparents, and those who came before me, to understand how much my own journey of healing was linked into theirs and what comes through them. And then at some point, I realized what was missing was an inclusion of the collective, an inclusion of the larger community. The chaos and the discord that exists as a result of social and political and economic institutions and circumstances and systems that we grow up in, that create limitations and distort the ways we're in relationship with ourselves and one another, the world, and the natural world. And so that turned me into this program, which really has supported me to come into this relationship of and learn to practice and apply in a way that's inclusive of who we are and experience ourselves as individuals, with these lineage experiences and patterns and relationships that we bring forward, and as well as within the context of the world and community and culture. And I'm in currently a partnership that is in a transition of conscious decoupling, and where we've been in that process for a couple of years. And so that's a big aspect of life themes and things that I'm working with that I'm sure will be part of the context of my engagement with what we're doing in this space, and is a frame of reference for what I'm stepping into in the next years, which is questions around where I'll be and who I'll possibly be with. And I am a child who is navigating the world without her parents. My mother passed suddenly 3 years ago, and my father died from a self-inflicted wound. He took his life about, 20 years ago now. So, that's also something that I have navigated my own healing process around very deeply. And it's a wound, I would say, that I carry, and it's an aspect in what led him to that choice is also an aspect, and there are themes there that include, deep childhood wounding, and sort of like the wounds that come through him of growing up and coming into the world in a state of real poverty in the hills of Kentucky, and with a lineage of alcoholism and other aspects of emotional unavailability and disconnection. So I'm introducing myself in this way so that those of you that join us in the space will have a sense of the things that I have come into a relationship with through the applications of different modalities and practices that we will be discussing and investigating and applying here, because these are really at the heart of who I am. I'm also a person who absolutely relishes being in nature, and I really derive so much of my capacity to be resilient and to heal and to be inspired through a deep connection with the earth and with the nature beings and with the realms that are beyond the cosmos, as we'll talk about. So I think that would be a good place to transition, but that's who I am, or a slice of me. And I'm grateful to be here and to share in this journey with you. Tanya, would you like to share a bit about who you are, how you got here?
Thank you. I love the way that you approach this. Really, in what we also want to create here is, you know, like we're full whole humans with our histories and our lineages, as well as what we do in the world, and all of it matters, right? All of it is relevant. So I've just turned 50, as you began with age, because it feels really good, actually. It didn't feel so good just before, I will admit, and now I'm like embracing it fully. And I am, as you can see, if you're watching us, we are in very different environments, different time zones. So I live in London, and I live with my two teenagers, also slightly younger than Jessica's. So I have a 14-year-old daughter and a nearly 17-year-old son, whom I have been parenting solo for the past 11 years. I'm originally from Finland, but I came over to this country in 96, right? So a long time ago. So most of my adult life has been in the UK and mostly in London. So who am I more than that? More than mother, which is a big part of being, as you can imagine. So it's interesting because I always feel like, you know, I get the label. I've been teaching yoga for 18 years, nearly 19 years. So I kind of come with this label of yoga teacher. And I do honor that. And it is what I do in the world. Largely, I do other things too. But I think the main thing about yoga for me is it really began the healing journey. So for me, the probably biggest sort of life event was when I was 16. My mom died suddenly. She had a brain hemorrhage, an aneurysm. She passed out, and within 8 days, she was dead. And she was young. She was 51. So this really was a moment of that sort of rug of my whole universe being pulled from underneath me. And at the time, it was quite different, even though it doesn't, you know, seem that long ago. I didn't have any kind of I wasn't offered any kind of counseling or grief therapy. It really wasn't present. And I think really what happened to me is I was in kind of shock and completely numb for a period of time. So what happened when I found yoga, and I was in my late 20s at this point, and I'd done some therapy at this point in my mid 20s. But I think what really happened is when I found yoga, I came into relationship with feeling through my body. And for me, still the sort of the biggest revelation with yoga was in my very first class. And I still remember I went to this lunchtime class because I was working in restaurants in the evening, and there was two of us in class, and it was an Iyengar class. And I remember like staying in the poses and my thighs shaking and kind of going, oh my God, what's happening in my body right now? But then I lay in Shavasana in relaxation, and it was just like I was home. And so I would say in some ways it was my first conscious spiritual experience. And there was a sense of remembrance. It felt like I came back to myself somehow in a completely new way. And I had this sense of finding something that I didn't even realize that I was looking for. And really it was connection, a deep connection. And I think when I trace back, connection has always kind of been at the very center of what everything that I want and everything I want to offer and everything I build. Before finding yoga, I was on the acting path, and I think really what I sought through acting was connection. I wanted to touch people. I wanted to be in that place where I was moving something in somebody else, you know, because and really that is about a kind of shared human connection. And then after I found yoga, and I'd been practicing for some time, and then when I went into yoga teacher training, really just to learn more, but it was kind of then that I realized, oh, through teaching yoga, I can do exactly that, and I can do it in a much more fulfilled way, because as you know, life as a jobbing actor isn't that great. You don't often get those opportunities to really work with something deep and meaningful. And then through yoga, like just the path of self-discovery and continued growth, I think, going deeper into understanding the energy body, the elements, coming into a more intimate relationship with the world around me. So I really, you know, feel this, and this is kind of where I feel I am right now, is like, how do we move, and why we're here largely, I think, is this, you know, how do we navigate from that very personal journey that yoga can be, other practices can be, other modalities can be, but actually relate to the world from that place in a very real way. Because we are the world, right? And everything outside of us is reflected inside of us, and we're in this pulsation and connection. I personally believe that a lot of the chaos and the discord, right, that we're experiencing in the world is because of the total disconnect. And we're all suffering because ultimately there is something inside of us which is yearning for the connection. And in the Indian tradition, in the Hindu tradition, there is this beautiful word of darshan. And darshan means not just to see, but also to be seen. And if you go to a temple, or if you go and see a guru, if you go to a temple, you will have a darshan with the deity of the temple. If you go and see a guru, it's the same. It's like you will go and see the guru, and they might not even speak to you. Like we have Amma, the hugging saint, she gives you a hug. Some just sit and look you in the eyes in different ways, but it is the moment of seeing and being seen. That connection is the healing. So if we are disconnected, we are suffering all the time from that, not receiving that, and being received. So I've since added many, as we both of us share. I feel like all the maps really help. So I love astrology. Couldn't tell you how it works, but somehow it works like magic. And it's such a beautiful point of reflection and understanding and insight, and exactly that of how we are a continuous sort of pulsation with the cosmos. And I find it very reassuring, because I feel like, oh, there is something bigger weaving here than just me, you know, and there are energies that are playing through me that are bigger than me. And I also love stories. I love the tarot because I love the archetypes and the way that a tarot reading really tells a story. And I feel like we are, you know, we understand each other through each other's stories, because that's how we recognize ourselves and we recognize each other. And there's a beautiful quote by this guy James De Silva, who says, you know, what differentiates us is that we are the storytelling species. And I think that's really how we learn about the world, through the stories. Yeah, I think maybe that's kind of enough about me for now. I am excited to be here. I'm excited to explore what we can co-create in the space, not just the two of us, but all of you as well. Maybe Jessica, if you want to speak to how you and I came across each other and how we met, and how we've weaved our way together side by side.
Yeah. I just got warm chills all over my body when you said that, just thinking about, sort of, I guess, on the tails of everything you said, and then thinking about what brought us together, and how we were sort of, I think about the land we were on. So Tanya and I found ourselves in a year and a day long ritual program with Sienna Sherman. And in this program, we had 3 periods of time, 9-day periods, where we joined together as a group. And we did deep creative ritual practice that involved a lot of the things that we will weave into this space in different ways: self-awareness, somatic awareness, relationship with archetype, relationship with the larger stories of our lives and the larger collective stories that we all situate in. And we were on this beautiful land, Villa Lina, in Rincleone, Italy. And this was an ancient land that had a cave that had been a cave of use for many different purposes for I don't even know how long. I spent a whole night in that cave in the dark by myself, so I got to know it quite intimately, which was an intense and beautiful and revealing process. And that morning when I came out of the cave, and other mornings when I was out early walking the land, when the land was very, very quiet and just waking, and there was no one else out and about, or so I thought, until I would see this beautiful woman who was just like almost floating in my perception on the land, just walking so gently in deep observation. And it was Tanya. It was sort of like we would catch each other out of the corner of our eyes. And one morning I was out early and I came around a hedgerow, and here was this beautiful goddess, as far as I could tell, laying out next to this ancient pool that was not in use at the moment. So it was this sort of like ruiny kind of looking scene. And the morning sun was shining upon her nude body. And I just thought, okay, I get this, sister. We have something here. But I was working, I was assisting Sienna over that period, so I didn't have time to drop in and really connect deeply with anyone. So, but I kind of earmarked, I would love to get to know this person. And then, just almost like magic, I don't know how much longer after that year and a day wrap, maybe some months, but we found ourselves in the same small group in a professional apprenticeship training with Robert Masters, learning and practicing shadow work together with a group of maybe 4 or 5 other people. And that was the first of, I think, 3 7-day or 9-day trainings that we did. These were all on Zoom, so we weren't physically together, but it was a very deep and intimate way of coming into relationship with Tanya. And through that, we both, I think, you can share and add to this if you think, but we both really developed a sense of appreciation and an experiential and embodied appreciation for not only the power of shadow work, but the power of group work, the power of being in collective spaces over time with the same group of people. And that when you are working in a group, these aspects of our conditioning and these aspects of our patterns and the themes that are at the heart of them, that are at the source of our wounds and our patterns and our conditioning, are reflected in one another's experiences and stories in ways that become a catalyst for, I think, a level of self-awareness, self-reflection, sort of agitation of the system in a healthy way, in a way that invites a different kind of inquiry and a different inroad, a different perspective, a different lens on what it is that we're working with to heal and transform. And so we continued in this group work together. And at that point, we started practicing shadow work together every week. And so that's been about 3 years that we've been dropping in and taking turns, hour, 40 minutes, exchanging, leading one another in shadow work. And that has been just such an amazing experience to see Tanya's capacity to be present to the sources of her conditioning, the source wounds of her emotional patterns, to develop her own awareness and capacity to track the aspects of her daily experience and the activations that she experiences, and to be present to and to have awareness of where they come from, and to literally be able to shift thought patterns, behavioral patterns in ways that are expanding her capacity for intimacy, for opportunity in work, for all sorts of things. And I'm sure she would say the same for me. And so we then did a 2-year, which we just wrapped in July, about a little over a year and a half long professional apprenticeship, which is a really much deeper dive with a group of people that was monthly and weekly practices and meetings, and then several long day, 2 on Zoom, multiple day, and then 1 live training with Robert Masters. And so really it's through our appreciation for these modalities that we share that include shadow work, and our appreciation for collective spaces and our desire to create a new kind of space for people to be in relationship with their own processes, their practices, in an ongoing way, in an iterative way over time through the seasons, that we're curious to explore in this space. So Tanya, if you want to add anything to sort of what brought us together, and then share a little bit about really what this project's all about. And
yeah, thank you for that. And it's such a nice reminder of how we met. And I feel like we had that time of those quiet mornings because we were in silence and seeing each other, and this sort of sense of knowing that, this is, we have a connection. It's not outspoken, but we will, something is going to happen here. And then we met each other on this first shadow work training, which was a year later, and it was during COVID. So suddenly we were on Zoom, but it was, such a reassurance. Oh, there's this person, this gorgeous sister I've met in real life, and that's really where this alliance, we like to call it our therapeutic alliance, started. And it's of course much more than that. It's a really, really deep friendship because also of the work that we do together and how we share. And I think the curiosity really for both of us is that we have done, both of us, much work in transformative practices. The embodied practices such as yoga, journey dance, other modalities, therapy, and so forth, as well as shadow work. We've been part of different lineages, different understandings, traditions. And then the question is, how do we really live into this practice, or lean into, right, the practices in a way that makes real change? Because often we might go on a retreat, or we do a training, or we go off somewhere, we have an amazing experience, we might do a journey with the plants or something like this, and then we come back, and then what? So really one of the things we want to explore, and ideally with everybody who's listening, is how do we then really bring that daily, day-to-day kind of change? What can we do to live these practices more fully embodied, to really transform, right? And so it's not that we have an awakening somewhere and then we come back and it's like, oh, everything's the same. But we're not the same, but how are we not the same? And what does that actually look like in practice? So there are so many themes that we share as humans, and we have seen this with each other in the work we do and in the groups that we sit, and how the themes are the same. They have different stories around them, different manifestations, but we have this shared experience. And when we come into a space with that, and we intimately share, whether it's like deep sadness or anger or whatever it might be, feeling unworthy, all those things, that if we can really sit with them, if we find ways of not turning away, looking at, or even just looking at, what are the strategies, like what's the tendency when things get uncomfortable? Do I numb out? Do I distract myself? Do I have a drink? Do I watch Netflix? Like starting to understand what's actually happening, and more awareness, of course, starts to also bring change. I think what's been beautiful in how we've worked is that we have really actively been in process the whole time. So I have a place where I can process and be witness. So it's not just going on inside my head. And of course, ultimately, we want to create here a space where we're inviting everybody to be in process. So that we are not just here to tell the stories and for you to listen in, but to really lean in and feel into, what is that for you? What does it look like for you? And hopefully come into some reflection, inquiry, and maybe also some practices that we'll offer in this space. Anything else you want to add? I know I sort of feel like we maybe need to come into some more clear examples of what we're talking about, or what it actually looks like. So I don't know if you want to add anything at this point.
Well, I think to clarify, just for me to draw a little highlighting around, that this space is a space that we are going to be both sharing in practices and processes, and a application of modalities each episode within the context of our own lives. But we have some people in mind who are people that we've been in practice with, who we'd like to invite on to become sort of the additional seeding of the community to share in their practices and processes, and then over time to build it in a way where perhaps some of you who begin to engage more fully, and the larger project that we're holding here that is outside of the podcast will include some couple-hour group process workshops that you can drop into, and that we hope to build community around, that then can weave into these conversations and these spaces. And then some longer context 3-day group process workshops that we will engage, and then have a live retreat, a live gathering, probably once a year. And so that hopefully we'll build a community of people who, like Tanya and I, and some of the people we've been in our groups, have a frame of reference for one another's processes and experiences. And, I can say that for me, when I talk about, like you said, draw an example of like how group experience and that capacity to be in application with the same people over a period of time, not only stimulates different ways of looking at things, but also is that inspiration. Because if you have been in process and in practice in a really deep way around your conditioning and your emotional patterns, then you will have a familiarity with the feeling of, oh my God, do I actually have to go into that again? And am I still needing to work on that thing that happened 20 years ago? But when you're in process with a group, or you're able to witness over time, you see that when someone drops into real sincere deep work around something that's in application, this is the thing, going back to what you were saying, Tanya, it's activated because there's something in real life, an opportunity perhaps for more love, for more of what you want in work or in, other things like opportunities for growth and expansion. Those can be activating experiences. They can bring up fears, insecurities, and whatnot that can then block the path towards that thing. When that comes up in real life, and then that leads you back, right, to have to work on that thing again, then you can see when you're witnessing it in someone else, wow, they really are different with this now. They're having to touch in on the same thing, but their relationship to it has significantly changed. The way they're relating to it, the way they're holding themselves in it, what seems possible through it and beyond it, and how then that work can then free up whatever is needed to be freed and create different ways, capacities to respond to whatever it's the opportunity or the challenge or whatever has come up in the day to day. So I think that feels, for me, we're citing this in a podcast, but we're really wanting to create something that is a little different than the traditional format of podcasting, which is sort of a one-way delivery, right? It's the people on the podcast sharing powerfully, and you can have, a really empathetically charged experience and maybe a cathartic experience from relating to what's shared or have insights. And what we want to do is be able to take that and then take it to the next place where there's some application of practice, there's some different ways of connecting around those things with one another. And then over time, that sustains, that it can be available to more people. And we can, really kind of build a sense of collective care, within this space. So that feels like, what I might add to sort of what we're launching here. And does that simulate anything for you, or does that feel?
Yeah, no, great. And I think this thing of like practical application, and the fact that we're in our messy lives every day and things are naturally up because we're human, and that it's about coming into a more intimate relationship with all of that. And when we can be in a more intimate relationship with that which is challenging and uncomfortable, and we can lean into the discomfort, equal amounts we'll be able to lean into the joy, right? Lean into love, right? Because it really is, I feel like all the practices that I've engaged with are helping me to like move from a bit of a monochrome landscape into technicolor. It's like expanding the register, right, of experience. So really about becoming more fully alive in all the ways, but we can't, if we negate the stuff that's difficult, we're not going to get the good stuff either, really. And the beauty of doing this together, right, is that, we can lean into each other, we can support each other, we can be seen when it's really tough, and that, we can be held because we need each other. So really hoping to create opportunities for that community of people who are into this to be together in various ways. So we are just like setting the scene with this first season. We're bringing on the themes that seem, well, there are so many themes, but many of the themes that seem to come up again and again, which I know all of you will relate to. And then looking at the practices that can support being with that and what that looks like. So that's really, it's like the first season is to just bring forth the foundation, and then hopefully we can really grow from there together. So yeah. Anything else on that? Is there anything that's up for you? Like when we're looking at, so what is being in process on a day-to-day basis? Is there anything that has been up for you, recently or just now?
I mean, this is exactly like the mundanity of it, right? Or just like the daily, where I can say this morning, I was getting up, I'm working on getting the 18-year-old out the door. I'm working on getting myself prepared. I'm feeling excited about, this, our first recording our first episode together. I'm feeling a little nervous. I'm like, like wanting to be like, have, my time, relax, drop in, be present, my intentions, like the ideal. I'm like trying to get, hone that. And then I have to take little Otis, who I'm sure at some point, Otis will show up in the podcast, but he is our pug, and I needed to take him for a walk. And so we head out into the woods, and I'm like, what does the woods want to add? It's like the ideal to the presence of what I want to bring today. And I'm walking in the woods, and then little Otis is doing his business, and I'm standing there, and I noticed this gentleman come up, and he's listening to something out loud, and he's got his dog, and Otis is doing his business. So Otis sometimes can get a little he's tiny, but he can get annoying and aggressive and barky. And so I thought, okay, he's doing his business, so I'm going to sort of just kind of guard him and let the guy go by. Well, sure enough, the guy went by, and Otis went nuts. And the guy got about 10 feet away, and then he said, you act surprised, but your dog always does that when I walk by. Can't you just walk him away from us? And I was like, I apologize sincerely. I will, next time I will definitely make sure. And I mean, I immediately, said the thing that was the thing I would have wanted to say. But inside, I felt shame. I felt shame. I felt embarrassment. I felt like I had done something wrong and been called out about it. And I could feel that charge come up so strong. And I was like, and then I was double charged and mad because now this has ruined my big morning. And, but then I was really carrying that. And I was disappointed. And it was just like, ugh. And then then there was that part of me that wanted to explain to him, but he was doing his business. And that's why I didn't move him, right at the beginning. But, that's the thing. We want to explain ourselves. And then I thought, okay, there is some big feelings coming up for me right now. How do I track what this really is? And I think for me, a big piece of all this work has been coming into relationship with shame. And with like all these different ways where I think before I wouldn't have recognized that actually shame was a big element in, like, if I was having a strong emotional activation around some, interaction or some confrontation or something. But I came home and I came in, and I just knew I needed to discharge this. I was present to it. And so I just had a conscious rant, and I had a big scream. And I just let the energy out. And it wasn't at anyone. It was just for this conscious purpose of allowing myself to fully feel and discharge the emotion that had come up so strong, so that then I could, in as much as was possible, come back to a baseline and enter this space with you without sort of carrying that in. So that was, something that was, just like an immediate example that comes to mind.
Yeah, I love that. That's really putting to practice. The conscious rant is a true gift, and we'll speak more about it. And how about we just take a moment so we can also feel into what work can look like just for a brief moment.
Sure.
Just ground into your seat, feel the earth, close your eyes, notice your breath. Allow yourself to take yourself back to that moment where you'd been, in your experience, told off. You'd said the right things. And I'll just offer some incomplete sentences for you to continue just immediately with what comes up. Where the shame came up in my body was
my heart, like immediately just like a sinking in my chest.
If that sinking feeling would have spoken to me, would have said,
you didn't respond, you didn't do the right thing, you should have you should have picked up the dog, you should have avoided that, it was just like, what's wrong with you?
So critical, shaming voice. Recognizing this, I knew I had to.
I had to hold myself and really be acknowledging of that, just that there was this part of me that felt wrong and embarrassed and just like shameful around not doing the right thing, not being able to keep everybody comfortable.
The most powerful thing that came through the conscious rant and scream was
my ability to just like without words just give sound to what I wanted to almost say back to the critical voice, was just like stop, but it was just like like verbal.
Yeah. And how I feel now is
I feel compassion and understanding for all sides of myself in that experience, and I feel at ease and just understanding like that, we're just human, we're just doing the best we can, and I'm just human, I'm doing the best I can. I can't keep everyone comfortable all the time.
Say that again.
I can't keep everyone comfortable all the time.
Exactly. So just take a slightly deeper breath and allow yourself to come back into your body. And thank you for being willing to just go there and go with it for a moment and sharing with us. Because this is what it looks like, right? This is what it looks like.
Thank you, Tanya. That was really helpful. And this is what it looks like. And it doesn't always have to be like 45-minute or an hour session, right? And that's the thing, is as we get in practice and as we come together in this space, we really hope to explore the different ways that even within the context of this place, this space, we can invite and share in some processes that you, as those who are coming here to join us, can engage in actively and benefit from, and then hopefully draw into some other spaces where there's more of an interactive capacity and we can really be in this in a deeper way together, if that's inspiring, or for those of you that is inspiring and you feel called towards. So thank you. And with that, let's just do that. Let's just take a moment and offer a little opportunity. Tanya, would you be, or I'll go for it. Okay. So just for those of you who are listening, to whatever capacity you have at this moment, if it's safe and you're in a place that you could just close your eyes, do that. And if not, just soften your gaze and just turn your attention inside towards yourself. And just notice your breath without needing to change anything. Just notice the sensations in your body. And I'm going to offer a few sentence stems, just like Tanya did for me. And you can complete them out loud or just inside of yourself, whatever feels best for you. right now I'm feeling where I'm feeling this feeling the most present in my body is I give this feeling and its presence in my body, what I feel there, just a little more space. Just placing my awareness and attention on it, I notice what the conversation shared here stimulates in me is I give that, what that stimulates, that feeling, a little more space. What I notice is what I imagine might shift for me if I gave myself more time and space and opportunity to process what arises for me in the intense moments in my daily life. I would. Just being present to those sensations and what's arisen for you here. Just taking a few breaths into it and feeling into the wholeness of who you are. One more sentence stem. Beyond identity, relationship, roles I play in life or fill in life, I am. And just take a moment and just, if you feel comfortable, just place your hands on your heart, maybe your belly, in just a supportive way, just touching yourself, just offering yourself your own supportive touch, just being present to whatever's arisen in you, expressed in this moment with love and support.
Thank you, Jessica, for your beautiful guidance. And of course, we hope that some curiosity is stirred in you, having listened to our conversations, our thoughts, our offerings. And we really hope that you'll join us for the next episode and further to explore some of these life themes, these things that come up, the challenges we all face with us as we dive deeper in the next episode. And please, if you think that this kind of conversation, this kind of practice, and this kind of work, and this kind of exploration would be interesting for anybody you know, or helpful or supportive for anybody you know, invite them in. This is really like a grassroots seed being planted just between us and our very small communities. And hopefully, if it speaks to you, it will speak to others, and just spread the word and bring us all together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, for those of you who've joined us, for being here with us. We appreciate your presence, and we hope to hear from you. We will be sharing more ways to connect and communicate as the episodes continue to unfold. So take good care and be well.